Okay, this video is called What Is It Like to Be a Genius? Okay. The stuff said in this video is true and it's obvious to all geniuses. If you disagree with this, that means you're not a genius, okay? In times, this is first of all a quote by George Orwell, in times of universal deceit, speaking the truth is a revolutionary act. Okay, Plato, no one is more hated than he who tells the truth. Okay, when I was a young guy, I was a great athlete, and it seemed like almost everybody liked me. I had lots of male friends, of female friends, beautiful girlfriends. I just kind of got along with everybody. Random people would say nice things to me. The janitor at the school, good match last weekend. Now it's like the opposite. I've become a great scholar, and almost everywhere I go on the internet, I'm completely ignored or ostracized or vilified or shadow banned. And I've noticed that there's very few people who like me. The only people who like me are young people like me because they're trying to learn. They want to develop their knowledge and skill, and they thank me for being a great teacher. Then I've noticed that middle-aged and older people who are trying to heal themselves from a disease and that actually study, they like me, and they thank me for helping them and how valuable my information is. But very few of them ever find out about me because I'm so shadow banned and ostracized. And then there's some very rare AOA type doctors. AOAs are the top 10% of medical school class. And some of them are real bright and they read in other fields. And then they come across me and they're like, holy shit, you've rewritten our textbooks. You've figured out all these things. And they give me lots of compliments. They tell me things like, my videos and books are the best health information in the world, okay, and should be preserved in a library, even though my books aren't allowed in any library or any medical school. And so anyways, what you'll notice is, all of this stuff, there's zero financial benefit for any of this. Then here's a quote from Ayn Rand. She says, true scientists are essentially loners. They pursue knowledge for the sake of knowledge. A scientist who discovers knowledge and shares it to benefit others is the greatest benefactor of mankind. Such men should be considered heroes, but such men are not regarded as heroes. They are the most hated, blamed, denounced in so-called humanitarian societies. Ayn Rand. Okay, in my experience, the average pro is usually too stupid to have any idea what's going on. They have very little intellectual curiosity. They'll go on the internet and they'll click on one of the bro science channels and they'll go, gee, that guy looks buff. I want to do what he's doing. Or, that lady looks pretty and skinny. I'll do what she's doing. They don't have much, judgment or understanding. And they'll also be easily persuaded by the high-fat phonies. An average doctor, conventional medical system doctor, has an IQ of about 120, okay? They struggle just to learn the standard protocols. They follow them the rest of their life. They don't ever question it. They themselves are fat, sick, and stupid, not much later after the patients. Their job is to sell stuff, to sell blood tests at the lab, imaging tests in the radiology department, and sell drugs, okay? That's how the medical system makes the vast majority of its money. And, procedures like colonoscopies, mammography, and all that stuff. Okay, the top 10% of a medical school class are called AOAs, Alpha, Omega, Alpha. They're the best students. They typically have IQs in the range of about 135 to 150. And they, maintain high standards in conventional medical system. That'll be your top-notch surgeons, things like that, heads of departments that they'll write the standard textbooks, everything with standard conventional thinking and knowledge and perspective. And these often become on staff at Ivy League hospitals or other big-name places, okay? If somebody's an AOA, especially if they're good looking and articulate, most of them are articulate, they can sell out to drug companies or big food companies and make millions of dollars promoting what big money wants. Okay, so that's a profitable thing to do. Promote olive oil, for example, okay? Now, genius level IQs are, in the ballpark of about 160 and higher. Typical examples would be like Walter Kempner, Nathan Pritikin, John McDougall, and myself, okay? These guys are often getting into trouble because they go beyond the standard protocols of contemporary clinical practice and, they basically contradict what big money, big pharma, big insurance, big dental, big food, big device maker, big hospital corporations, the standard medical textbooks, they contradict all the big names who are making money off the system exactly the way it is and who don't want anything changed, okay? It's much better in life to have rich friends than to have rich enemies, okay? Big money, they got lots of money. They got easy power to screw over geniuses. They routinely do. They get them discredited, take their funding away. so that the genius can't do research, can't get funding to do research anymore. They can still research the literature, but they can no longer get funding to do big experiments that they might want to do. Okay, here's a quote by Ian Fleming. He's the guy who wrote the James Bond. He said, "All the greatest men are maniacs. They are possessed by a mania which drives them forward towards their goal. The great scientists, philosophers, religious leaders, all maniacs. What else but blind singleness of purpose could have kept them in the groove of purpose? Mania is as priceless as genius." Yeah, you got to have a lot of energy. Okay, so here's what does it take to do genius level achievement? Number one, you got to do tons of studying, way beyond everybody else. Forget about A+. You have to go on what an A+ student would do. You have to be way beyond that, okay? And you have to know multiple fields besides just your own. If you just know your own, how are you going to go beyond what's already known? You go beyond it by knowing how to combine your field with other fields so you can catch the state-of-the-art stuff. You have to read back through all these, crusty old books, and a lot of times you'll find there was some great in the past it was neglected, and you combine that with some new modern information and it provides useful insight. Number two, they need lots of practical clinical experience. You got to, get down in the dirt and go through stuff. I did a surgical internship, fellowship in imaging guided surgery at Harvard, and, I did thousands of procedures. I don't know how many procedures I've done, probably about 10,000 of them. So I've been up to my ears in medical stuff for a long, long time. I grew up in a family of doctors too, so I've been around this ever since I was little. You got to have the energy to work this much, and it does take a lot of energy, so you got to try to take care of yourself and your health to maintain it as best you can. You need desire and motivation to become the best expert in the world on a topic. So again, you have to really want to do something useful, something great, something that stands out, something that's beyond what anyone else in the world has ever done in that field. Okay, so that takes a lot of commitment, dedication, and energy. It means you have to give up a lot of things. You have to give up the opportunities to make big money by being a sellout if you want to be a true useful genius rather than a phony. You have to pass up most of the other activities in daily life. A typical scene is for 11 years, just recently until I got divorced, I didn't have a cell phone because I thought it was a waste of time and I needed to focus on getting work done. I once said to my former wife, I'm good at memorizing medical stuff, okay? And she said to me, well, you'd better be because you're effing worthless at everything else. You don't do a damn thing in this house. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, it was really her house. I knew at divorce she would keep the house, not me. She had forced the family to move to that house. I didn't want to live in that house. So it's true. I would refuse to pick up a dog crap. And we had 5 dogs, okay? So there was a lot of craps. Or do any other work in the house. I would pay if something was broken, like the refrigerator or something, but I wouldn't do any work in the house. On principle, yet alone because I wanted to free myself up to have more time to study and write. And basically, she was kind of like my landlord in a sense. I'd give her 1 check a month and I didn't have to pay any bills. So I would be a free man to just work and study, other than having to do my conventional clinical stuff. Okay, so the number 7, you have to have the courage to stand alone. So it takes self-confidence and determination that you don't want to just meld into the group like Solomon Ash's research showed that if with the average person, if you put them in a group of 10, 20 people and 9 or 19 out of the 20, 9 out of the 10 all say something that's obviously untrue, the vast majority of people will just agree with what the group says. So to be a high-quality genius, you have to stand alone, which means you'll have 99 people in direct disagreement with you who are all, MDs, PhDs, and all that, but they're full of shit. They haven't read, they don't know what they're talking about, or they're liars. So you have to have that confidence to say the truth as it is. Christianity helps. Most geniuses are Christians. Yeah, there's tons of exceptions, but most of them are. It tells you to tell the truth and to do what is right in the eyes of God. But it doesn't protect you from martyrdom, and you might want to, you want to have more, sure, it's nice, it'll give you an increased chance to get to heaven, but you want more time here on earth, so you have to pick how far you go with different topics. And, but the bottom line is it doesn't pay so well. It gives you a good feeling. You feel good that you're doing something good. And that's nice because like Schopenhauer had said, forget about a happy life. The best a man can try for is a heroic life. Because if he does the best he can with his current circumstances, then he respects himself, he likes himself. So he's reasonably happy. And it's enjoyable to study and learn and write and teach because Like Aristotle said, the greatest pleasure of all is contemplation, thinking, and philosophy, because unlike the other pleasures, it does not wax and wane. Okay, you make the two-back beast for just a couple of minutes, and it's great, but then it's back to regular life. Whereas you can contemplate and read and think and write all day long. Okay, and I routinely do. Anyways, that's kind of like what it's like to be a genius. And one last thing too, I'll just tell you one story. Like my kid. It's about 5 years ago. One of my kids says to me, "Dad, why are you so happy? Your life sucks. Out of all the people in the family, you have the worst life, but you're the happiest person. All you do is work all the time on a regular job as a doctor, and then you come home, and what do? You're just reading and studying and writing books or making your YouTube videos that nobody watches. I mean, it's kind of a stupid, boring life. Why are you so happy?" And I said, it's because I know who I am and what I want to do with my life. I have my own sense of a calling, my own sense of a destiny. It's been said that an animal is happy when it does what it's meant to do. A horse is happy when it runs. Well, a scholar is happy when they're reading and studying and, coming up with a new idea, writing a book, or teaching. And it's kind of like I have other family members who are quite adventurous. They travel all over the world. One of my brothers called me on the phone not that long ago and asked me if I wanted to go to Spain, to Pamplona, to run with the bulls. And I said, why the F would I want to do that? Where I'd potentially get hurt, it would be of no benefit to me, a waste of my time and money. And he said, oh, you're just a wuss. You never do anything. And from his point of view, that's right. I'm a wuss. But in my own mind, in my mind's eye, I'm actually like an adventurer, a discoverer, traveling to the known edge, the state of the art in a field and trying to improve upon it, trying to connect other fields, trying to put things all together. It's like, it's endless search and discovery. I find it very enjoyable and exciting. I just wish, I had more time to do it. I actually wish that like some rich benefactor would start a true research institution and, the actual truth, and like Bell Labs for, technology. There should be like a Bell Labs for nutrition and health. We could figure stuff out faster than all these bullshit artists at the universities who suck. Okay, you know what? They've been pursuing treatment of cancer since 1972 with Nixon and stuff, and they haven't done jack shit, okay? They suck. And you're never going to discover almost anything. If you're always focused on the money, then you're never going to study the basic principles. Just trying to develop a drug, you're not going to study the basic principles, and you're unlikely to ever progress. And even if somebody did come up with something good, then the other big money in that game would block it. Like that lady, what was her name, Ko or something, the Korean lady with Peterson guy who figured out a better treatment for cancer. It's in that book, Tripping Over the Truth, how they totally blocked all her research and her clinical work because they didn't want it to come out. So anyways, I actually think they ought to make the equivalent of a modern monastery for knowledge, because what I see happening is that the internet's going to delete a lot of the good stuff. All these audiobooks can be deleted tomorrow. All these ebooks can be deleted tomorrow. And eventually you're going to be stuck up with some party line of BS, just doing what big money wants on like numerous topics and all kinds of good things, artistic stuff, philosophical stuff, knowledgeable stuff, medical stuff. It's just going to be hidden and deleted from the internet. So it would be good to have some type of institute that maintain paperback, paperback, hardcover, paper covers of all the great books, okay? Of, external hard drives of all the great videos on the internet that are worth keeping. And they should be put in containers that are protected from EMP, containers protected, from mold, from water, that sort of thing, like museum specimens. It's kind of like, what preserved the knowledge of the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, and the Bible through the Middle Ages. It was the monasteries, okay? And, we're seeing the galloping ghost of the apocalypse right now coming through all this high-tech stuff where, the true knowledge, wisdom, and goodness that's been accumulated over the thousands of years is being hidden from the public and deleted. So I would love it if somebody would make like a modern monastery to save the good, true knowledge of the world and be like a caretaker there. That'd be like my dream. I know it'll never happen, but that would be like my dream, to be in a research institute where you're allowed to tell the truth and you don't have big money just getting in your face if you contradict them. Anyways, that's what it's like to be a genius.